All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to demystify one of the most critical and honestly, one of the most confusing parts of AWS, the DNS record types in Route 53. And believe me, getting this right is, well, it's everything.
And you know what? That is not an exaggeration. The stakes here are incredibly high. One tiny mistake, one little misconfiguration, and your entire application can just stop. No website, no emails, nothing. It's the silent foundation holding everything up.
But hey, don't worry. That's exactly why we're here. We're going to cut right through that complexity, break it all down, and make it super clear so you can configure your DNS with total confidence. Ready? Let's do this.
So at its absolute core, what even is a DNS record? Think of it like a single entry in the internet's giant address book. It's a simple instruction with 4 key parts. The name, which is what someone is looking for. The type, which tells the server what kind of answer to give. The value, which is the answer. And finally, the TTL, or time to live, which just tells other servers how long to remember that answer before asking again.
Okay, let's start with the absolute essentials. These are the building blocks, the record types you're going to see and use every single day.
First up is the A record. The A stands for address, and it's the most basic record type there is. It does one simple job. It points a domain name like app.example.com directly to a specific, unchanging IPv4 address. Now, this is great for something with a fixed IP, like an old-school server, but, and this is a huge but, in the dynamic world of AWS, it's often not the right tool for the job.
So what do we use instead? Well, that brings us to the CNAME, or canonical name record. Instead of pointing to a number, an IP address, it points the name to another name. It's just an alias, so you can take something nice and clean like www.example.com and have it point to the super long, messy DNS name that AWS gives your load balancer. It's incredibly useful, but it has one massive, critical flaw.
And that flaw creates what I like to call the central conflict of DNS in the cloud. It's a huge problem you're going to run into all the time, especially in AWS.
And here it is. This is the big one. According to the official rules of DNS, you are not allowed to put a CNAME record at the very top of your domain, the root domain, also known as the zone apex. So it works great for www.example.com or app.example.com, but you simply cannot use it for example.com itself. This single limitation is a classic interview question for a reason. It has massive implications.
Okay, so why is this one little rule such a headache inside the AWS world?
Is because the coolest, most powerful AWS services, your application load balancers, your CloudFront distributions, your API gateways, they don't give you a static IP address. They give you a DNS name that you have to point to. So if you want your main website, example.com, to point to your load balancer, what do? An A record won't work because the IP can change, and a CNAME record is forbidden. You're basically stuck.
Or are you? This is where AWS swoops in with its own clever, elegant solution to this very specific problem. It's the hero of our story.
I want you to meet the alias record. And this is the most important thing to understand. An alias record is not a real standard DNS record. You won't find it anywhere else. It is a proprietary, Route 53 only feature that AWS invented specifically to get around that root domain problem.
And this little showdown table tells you everything you need to know. Can it work at the root domain? For CNAME, that's a hard no. For alias, a big yes. Does it automatically track IP address changes behind the scenes? CNAME can't, but Alias does it for you. And here's the kicker: cost. Alias record queries against AWS resources are completely free. It's a knockout. The choice is obvious.
So this right here is the #1 takeaway. If you only remember one thing, make it this. When you are working inside the AWS ecosystem, you should always prefer an alias record over a CNAME. Saying that in an interview immediately shows that you get it, that you understand how to build for the cloud.
Awesome! So with that main problem solved, let's just quickly round out our toolkit with a couple of other essential records you'll definitely need for things like getting your email to work and proving you own your domain.
The TXT record is pretty much what it sounds like. It just stores text. It's like a little notepad for your domain. Its main job is for verification. Like when Google needs to prove you own a domain, they'll tell you to put a specific code in a TXT record. It's also super important for email security with things like SPF and DKIM. Get those wrong and your emails are going straight to the spam folder.
And speaking of email, the MX, or Mail Exchanger record, is absolutely non-negotiable. This record's only job is to tell the rest of the internet, hey, if you have email for this domain, send it to these servers over here. If your MX record is wrong, or if it doesn't exist, your emails will just vanish. They won't be delivered. Period.
Okay, theory is great, but let's put it all together. Let's look at the payoff and see what a real production-grade DNS setup actually looks like in the wild.
Now this is a beautiful blueprint. Look at how the alias record is the star of the show. It's doing all the heavy lifting for our actual applications. The root domain points to a load balancer. The www subdomain points to a CloudFront distribution for speed. The API subdomain points to another load balancer or API gateway. And meanwhile in the background, the TXT and MX records are quietly handling verification and making sure email gets delivered. This is a solid, modern setup.
And you know, if you really want to sound like a pro, you need to know the common pitfalls. We've talked a lot about using a CNAME at the root domain. That's mistake number one. Other big ones are creating a record in the wrong hosted zone, not understanding that a long TTL means your changes will take forever to show up, and of course, using an A record with a hard-coded IP when an alias record was the right move.
All right, let's wrap this up with a few key lines to burn into your memory. Number 1, alias is an AWS invention. It's a Route 53 special feature, not a standard part of DNS.
Number 2, the reason the alias record even exists is because of this fundamental rule. You cannot use a CNAME at the root of your domain.
And finally, a really important clarification about what DNS is actually doing. DNS does not route your traffic. It's not a router. It's an address book. Its only job is to answer the question, what is the address for this name? That's it.
So now you know the what. You know what the different record types are and what they do. But that brings up a really interesting question. How does AWS handle the where? How does it know whether to give an answer to the public internet or just inside your private network? Well, that's where public versus private hosted zones come in, and it's exactly what we're going to break down next time. See you then.